Hi, this is Michelle. A client of mine recently had a major breakthrough. She stopped crying when she saw her son. It was a habit she got into about 20 years ago when her husband died. Her husband was the light of her life. And so every time she saw her son, he reminded her of her husband, and she would burst into tears. This, of course, was very, very embarrassing to her son. And it got more embarrassing the older he got, and she continued to do that. And of course, it was embarrassing for her. And it held her back from living her life. She saw psychoanalysts and therapists and psychologists, and finally she came to work with me. And almost immediately, that habit changed, that released, because she started doing practices that allow her to release the emotional energy that was trapped in her body. In a very short time, she was back to living her life and enjoying her life and having a future. Losing a spouse is one of the ways in which we can really get stuck. Losing a spouse, a partner, is very traumatic because they make up so much of the fabric of your daily life. And it's just hard to deal with the emotions that come up. But the real problem are the emotional wounds and trauma of childhood that are reverberating and coming up when we're in grief. And losing the partner is not the only way that they show up. I had a client who came to me because she was having terrible arguments with her sisters over how to handle the health care of her parents. And sure enough, there was that early childhood pattern of trying to survive. I had another client who had a divorce with her husband after 30 years of being married. She was devastated. Again, the whole pattern rested on early childhood trauma. And I have another client who is having difficulty living her life purpose because she's a workaholic and she has no time to work on her dream. She's actually starting to change. Again, it's the early childhood patterns that we learn that hold us back. Let me explain how that works. We come into this world as little infants, very vulnerable, very dependent on our parents for everything we need. We can't do anything. We're not like sea turtles that once we leave the shell, we're on our own. No, we actually stay with our parents for 18, 20, 30, 50 years because it's very complicated being a human being. And the other thing is that we depend on our parents for more than just survival needs of food and clothing and shelter and warmth. We also need to be loved. We need to feel important. We need to feel that we matter. And a lot of parents don't even feel that for themselves, so it's very hard for them to transfer that to their children. Parents influence us both by the way in which they respond to us and also by the way in which they model behavior. So if they teach you to tamp your feelings down and you learn that pattern and you will continue to do that throughout your life until you learn that maybe there's a different way. So that can hold you back also. And in the process of trying to get the love that we need as children, we develop patterns of beliefs to ensure that we get the love that we need. So one of those patterns is people pleasing. A lot of women have this pattern. And I also, when I was a child, also developed that pattern because you don't trust the universe. You don't trust your parents to give you what you need, and you decide you have to control it. So people pleasing really isn't about pleasing other people. It's really about getting love for yourself, getting attention. And so children learn how to do this, to be the good child. Other children learn to get attention or get what they need through rebelliousness. Other children learn to get what they need by controlling things. That was actually the pattern that the woman I was telling you about. She was a controller because her mother was totally out of control. And so she, at a very young age, had to hold things together. And that actually got in the way of her living her life. Another pattern is perfectionism, trying to get everything perfect, getting more degrees and more education to prove that you really are worthwhile. Sometimes it's workaholism. I know for my own self, cleaning the house always makes me feel safe because that was a pattern in my family that would keep my mother off my back, that would prevent her from getting upset. So we learn these patterns, but in adulthood, they can hold us back from stepping into who we really are and sharing our gifts. I'll tell you from my own story of people pleasing. I did really well for a long time, especially in school. Teachers love to be pleased, so I got great grades. I graduated college. I got a PhD in sociology. I did really, really well. And then I got to my first job, and the people pleasing didn't work anymore. You know why? It's because my students needed me to lead. And people pleasing does not teach you how to lead. And so I lost that job, even though I had done everything. You know, I joined the faculty committees and taught night classes and coached the women's cross-country team. But I was so afraid of how the students were receiving me that I lost my power. I gave my power away to them. Maybe you have a similar problem, a lack of self-confidence or assurance that what you have to offer is of any value. In addition, I grew up with two amazing sisters, and I was always comparing myself. And because I was younger, I could never catch up. So that was another pattern. And you can see how these patterns hold us back when we are actually trying to make an important move in our lives or to decide that we are important enough to put our needs and desires on the forefront. The woman that was having trouble with her family, she was focusing on her parents, even though her parents were horrible to her as a child, because she got into that pattern of controlling. And she had put her dream, which was to impact the whole world and to encourage them to share positive stories, she had put that on hold because of her parents. And in working with me, she got back in touch with her true gifts. One of her gifts was that she was actually a healer. Of course, her parents poo-pooed that, and so she hid it. So that's another thing that happens, is that we hide our gifts because we don't believe that they're acceptable. So that path to becoming authentic, to embracing your gifts, it takes work. First, releasing the emotions, and then changing the mind, changing the thoughts, the beliefs, so that you really believe in yourself. And then finally, you need to take action. You cannot change just by changing your mind. Tapping is great, but it does not really get you anywhere. You actually need to take action. Now, some people have reported that tapping is great, and then there's another of other trauma release exercises. I like the technique that I use because it's really quick. And people don't have to indulge or wallow in their grief. Sometimes people, when they come to me, they come because of some sort of loss, and they're hesitant because they're afraid of allowing those emotions. But when you work with me, it's very simple, it's very surgical, it's very quick to release those emotions. You don't have to indulge in all the difficulty of it. And then it's gone, and then you have the space to work on the mindset. I found that it's really hard to change your mind. It's kind of like a band-aid when you're trying to change your mind to get your courage up, when underneath your inner child, that child that was wounded, is screaming bloody murder. No, don't do that, because she's afraid. So you release the emotions, you work on the mindset, and you take action. And that's the other thing that I provide, are specific exercises and practices that will transform your life. I want to point out something else. Your childhood does not have to be cataclysmic in order for it to hold you back. I had a woman who came to me, she had lost her, I guess she was put up for adoption, and she lost her mother. Now the problem was that her adoptive mother, although took very good care of her, never loved her. So that is the key, is feeling that you're worthwhile and important. We all need unconditional love, but very few of us ever receive it. So that's not a tragedy, okay? That's the way life is. Most of our parents did not have the kind of coaches and therapists we have available today, nor the cultural acceptability of getting help. And so they just led their lives of quiet desperation. We're the generation that needs to change that. We're the generation that needs to stand up and become empowered. Which sort of takes me to another segue, which is that our world really does need us to stand in our power and to share our gifts. Did you know that the number one regret of the dying is not living a life true to yourself, to oneself? It's the number one regret. That fear of that regret was actually what changed me, that caused me to change my pattern of people-pleasing and stepping into my power. Because we only have this short life. I created a whole documentary film series called Secrets of Life and Death, which is about waking people up, reminding people that we never know how long we're going to have. And what are you waiting for? So what about you? What are you waiting for? Are you waiting for more time? Like my one client who is a workaholic and never has any time? Are you waiting for more money? I have discovered that money does not come if you hold it back, that you need to invest in yourself. Are you waiting for courage? Again, that does not come except through taking bold action. Are you waiting for the voice of God? Well, listen closely. God may be talking to you right now. If you are feeling held back by something and you have enough motivation to take a step, I would like to offer you a step. And that step is to have a conversation with me and see how I can turbocharge your life, release or let go of all the emotional wounds and traumas that are holding you back, so that you can step forward and share your mission and purpose. That's the work I do. That is my mission, is to empower women, leaders and change makers, to overcome their fears and their mindset, their limiting beliefs, so that they can step into their true authentic power, so they can share their gifts leave their legacy, and live and die without regret. So have a conversation with me. To have a conversation with me, all you need to do is go to www.meetwithdrmichelle.com. And that's meet, MEET, with doctor, and that's just DR, and Michelle with 2 L's, MICHELLE.com. And let's have a talk. Let's see what's holding you back from living your purpose and your dreams. Let's see if we can get you back on track to fulfilling your life mission. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for joining me. And until next time, be brilliant.